Lux is often perceived as the complete opposite of Demacia's darker, heavier lore. To many people, she is light, magic, a smile, a bright image, and an energy that seems to know no fear. Against a backdrop of stern knights, rigid laws, and iron discipline, she can seem almost out of place, too alive, too open, too radiant for a world that is used to hiding weakness and fearing anything it does not understand. But that is exactly where the strength of her story lies. Lux is not just a good mage in a beautiful design, but a person who grew up inside a system built on fear and learned to live with a secret powerful enough to destroy her family, her name, and her future. Luxana Crownguard was born in the same Demacia as Garen, in the same house where honor, service, and loyalty to the crown were not decorative words, but the foundation of life. She grew up in a family where everyone was expected to fit their role, and while that path was clear and direct for Garen, it was far more complicated for Lux from the very beginning. Because in Demacia, order was built not only on law, but also on a deep fear of magic. That fear was old, almost inherited, woven into the culture, politics, daily life, and even the way people understood safety itself. Magic was seen not as a gift, but as a threat, as something that would one day inevitably spiral out of control and bring destruction. And it is in precisely such a world that Lux discovers within herself the very thing everyone around her fears most: magical power. This is not the kind of conflict that can be resolved with one brave conversation. For Lux, her magic is not an abstract issue or a philosophical topic. It is a secret living inside her body in every impulse, every emotional surge, every moment when she has to control herself more than anyone else. She cannot simply stop being what she is. She cannot step away from this gift as if it were an inconvenient habit, and at the same time, she understands perfectly well what the truth could cost if the wrong people learn it at the wrong moment. For someone from House Crownguard, that is a double blow. She is not only risking herself, but also her family name, the position of her loved ones, their safety, and their future. Lux's secret is not merely the fear of rejection, it is the fear of becoming the reason the people she loves fall. This is where her story becomes truly powerful, because Lux is not written as a character who only suffers in darkness and lives in fear. She carries a rare combination of vulnerability and inner light. She feels danger, understands the cruelty of the world and the cost of mistakes, and yet she does not become bitter. She does not lose the ability to see the good in people. She does not stop hoping that the world can be changed, not only through force, but through understanding. And that makes her one of the most compelling figures in Demacia. She lives in a system that could have broken her or turned her cynical, yet instead she preserves her humanity and her capacity for compassion, even while she herself remains under threat. Lux's relationship with Demacia is not a simple "she is good, the country is bad" story, and that is exactly why her lore works so deeply. She loves her home. She is not an outsider to this land. To her, Demacia is family, memory, duty, order, beauty, history, and people she knows and wants to protect. But she also sees how fear turns that home into a place where many people are forced to live in shadow, hide, and fear themselves. That is the tragedy at the heart of her story. She does not want to burn the system down because it is her world too, but she can no longer see it as flawless. Lux is a perspective from within. Not the view of an enemy, not the view of an invader, not the view of a cynical observer from the outside, but the view of someone who loves deeply and therefore sees the cracks most clearly. Her connection with Garen makes this conflict even more painful and more beautiful at the same time. Garen is the face of Demacia, its discipline, its sword, its duty. Lux is the light that reveals that beneath the nation's armor lie fear, doubt, and rigidity. They are not simply brother and sister, they are almost two sides of the same world. Through them, Riot shows with remarkable precision how one household can raise two people equally loyal to Demacia, yet lead them into very different encounters with reality. For Lux, love for her brother does not erase the truth of who she is. For Garen, love for his sister does not erase duty. And in that tension, one of the strongest family conflicts in all of Demacia's lore is born. Neither becomes a caricature, neither turns into a simple villain or a perfectly righteous figure, and because of that, their story feels alive. But when speaking about Lux herself, the most important thing is not merely the fact that she is a mage. What matters most is how she lives with that magic. Power in her story is not only the ability to create light, it is also the constant necessity of control, restraint, and caution. When the world around you is suspicious and harsh toward anyone who is different, any mistake stops being merely a mistake, it can become a sentence. That is why there is a special kind of tension in Lux's image. Outwardly, she often appears warm, sincere, even light and effortless, while inside she carries a discipline no less strict than a soldier's. The difference is that where Garen wears armor on his body, Lux for a long time wears armor inside herself, armor made of silence, caution, and the constant calculation of whether it is safe to be herself in this moment. This inner duality makes her far more interesting than a typical light character. She is not naive in any simple sense. Yes, she believes in something better, but that is not childish blindness, it is a choice. A very difficult choice made by someone who knows the world can be unfair and still refuses to answer fear with nothing but hatred. That is why Lux works so well in stories where not only magic matters, but moral complexity. Through her, one can talk about freedom, control, what it means to be seen as dangerous by society, the cost of silence, the cost of truth, and the way love for one's home can coexist with pain over what that home sometimes becomes. One of the most important parts of her story is the theme of visibility. Lux is literally connected to light, and yet for a long time she is forced to live in a way that keeps the most important part of herself hidden. It is almost perfect symbolism, a character of light who cannot fully step into the light. She illuminates others, helps, supports, preserves warmth in relationships, yet hides her own truth because she knows how dangerous another person's gaze can be. And that is exactly why the moments when she uses her power openly, or even simply allows herself to be more honest with herself, and others do not feel like flashy magic scenes, but like personal victories, often fragile and deeply risky. Lux is also compelling because she does not exist in the lore only as an addition to the major male figures of Demacia. Yes, she has powerful ties to Garen, to the system, to the mage question, and to the region's politics, but her story stands on its own. She matters not only because she influences others, she matters because through her, we see how a person with status, influence, and the right family name can still become deeply vulnerable when their true nature conflicts with the norm. That gives her story a distinctly modern emotional resonance even within a fantasy setting. This is not only about magic, but about living with a secret, fearing exposure, choosing between safety and honesty, and trying to preserve oneself within a system that already treats one's existence as a problem. In that sense, Lux is one of the key characters for understanding Demacia itself. If Garen shows its strength, honor, and the cost of duty, Lux reveals its fear, its inner lack of freedom, and its possibility for change. Through her, we see that Demacia is not just a kingdom of knights, but a living society where real conflicts hide beneath beautiful ideals. She helps us understand that the struggle in this region is not only between armies, but within homes, families, and hearts, not only for territory, but for the right to be oneself without losing one's connection to what one loves. That is exactly why Lux is so well suited for a long-form story. She can be told as a story of secrecy, as a story of growing up, as a story of fear and self-control, as a story of a family in which love and duty do not perfectly align, as a story of someone who does not want to choose between the truth of who she is and love for her home, and therefore searches for a third path, the hardest one of all. Her lore contains personal drama, political conflict, powerful symbolism, and emotional depth. It offers beautiful magic, yes, but what truly holds the viewer is not spectacle, it is the inner tension. If you look at Lux closely, it becomes clear that her greatest gift is not only light, her greatest gift is the ability not to become hardened. In a world where fear easily turns into cruelty and power turns into control, she preserves the ability to see a person where the system sees a threat. That does not make her weak. On the contrary, it requires a special kind of courage, because it is far easier to close yourself off, grow cold, choose one side, and stop doubting. Lux takes the harder path. She continues to love her home even while seeing its flaws, continues to search for goodness even while facing injustice, and continues to carry her light in places where she herself was forced to live in shadow for far too long. And perhaps that is where her true strength as a League of Legends character lies. Not only in magic, not only in a bright design, not only in popularity, but in the fact that she transforms Demacia's story from a simple tale of order and protection into a story about fear, humanity, and change. Lux is not just a heroine of light. She is a heroine of inner resistance to the darkness that sometimes is born not outside the home but within it. And that is exactly why she is worth talking about slowly, carefully, and seriously, not as a cute mage, but as one of the most nuanced, powerful, and important characters in all of Demacian lore.